Awesome.
So continue. Yes. I don't know what others can see. We already said hi to each other, but I say hi again.
Oh, it's so good
Elizabeth
to see
Kipp,
you.
and I'm Atma Hari and or Marianne, my birth name. And I'm right now in Wales with my dragon, whose name is Gwyn. And he's taking notes. He wants to become a feminist dragon. So that's why I came with Gwyn. Today is, we agreed that you're going to talk a little bit about the part of your work or activities that connects to divine feminine, um, woman, hara, cleaning,
Mhm,
healing.
mhm.
I happen to know from your Facebook wall that you are wearing several hats.
Yes.
Hat collection, actually, like chronic pain and poetry and book writing. And excuse me if I don't remember every aspect of your work. Now, I only am focusing on divine feminine.
Mhm.
That's my only hat. And the group exists for 2 years. And I would like others to know a little bit who's in the group and what they are doing or how they contribute to the elevation of the divine feminine. So that's the purpose of our meeting.
Beautiful.
And I don't know if you'd like to add something, if I forgot something about you, or
Mhm.
just to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you. I would like, thank you so much for the opportunity to
Sure.
speak with you and the group. I'll just clarify because it does seem like I wear many hats. It's really one hat.
Okay.
um, I I really professionally, I'm a chronic pain management specialist, and
Okay.
everything I do comes under that, right?
Okay.
So the ancestral clearing is the first thing that I do with a chronic pain sufferer or somebody who's healing from chronic pain.
Right.
I bring in a trauma informed yoga. It's
Okay.
Kundalini style, but it's trauma informed, and
Yeah.
I do. Of course, we bring in creativity into helping people with chronic pain. They have difficulty accessing joy, so we bring in
Okay.
creativity. So the poetry is there kind of as a
Oh,
source of
okay. All right.
inspiration. Yeah, and and so meditation is part of it. So there's a lot of different elements that go into healing from chronic pain. And here's the thing: the divine feminine is a
Mhm.
huge piece. And the ancestor, like I said, I put the ancestor clearing first with a new client first. And
Right.
within the ancestral clearing, the divine feminine is a huge piece. All women carry the wounds
Yes.
of the divine feminine, and men carry them through their mothers.
Yeah.
So this is fundamental to
Yeah.
helping people heal. And we have a planet loaded with illness and addiction and fear right now, and they don't understand the concept of oneness. There's all this separation, right? So
Right.
this is my work. It's fundamental, addressing the wounds of the divine feminine. Super important. Yeah.
Yes, I also agree that right now, because people are talking about the rebirthing of the divine feminine energy, right now we are in labor pain. Meaning that indeed these wounds that just came into surface, like who would a couple of years ago speak about Me Too? Who would a couple of months ago speak to Me Too in yoga, meaning the male yoga teachers abusing their female students?
Mhm.
So as beautiful as it sounds, the rebirthing of the divine feminine energy, right now we are in a healing crisis.
Mhm.
And I am reopening eventually my company in Wales. I closed the one in Canada, And I would also first start a client with womb awakening, womb clearing, healing wounds of patriarchy, because it's full of those wounds.
Oh, yeah.
So that is being said, I would like you to explain. I know we had like a trial session for ancestral clearing. I didn't have, because I cleared my own feminine, divine feminine wound, so it was not about that. But let's say if I were your client and call you up one day that, Elizabeth, I don't know, but I'm awakening to my divine feminine, and I don't know those ancestors. My mother was oppressed by my father, and my grandmother suffered a war rape, something like that. Then what would you do for me?
Well, the ancestral clearing work, which is a trademark process, trademarked by John Newton of Health Beyond Belief. And I'm one of his, there's only one person that trains this process, and that's John Newton. I'm one of his practitioners. So this is a very specific process. And the way it works is we work it in the present moment. So the first thing I would ask the client, if you were the client, I would say, where do you feel that in the body?
Okay, somatic experiencing.
Yeah, where's the charge in the body around what happened to your ancestors, to your parents, your grandparents, and so forth. Okay. I just worked with a granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, of a Holocaust victim, last week, and so that's a very familiar question. I get it a lot. I also worked with a baby who was born in a Japanese internment camp in World War II. So, and the burdens that they carry are quite great. So, and they're all patriarchal. So the one in the Japanese that was born in the Japanese internment camp was a man, was a male, but he carried the same wounds of the patriarchy, right?
Yes, I understand. So the first step would be, you would ask, let's say this is a true story. My grandmother suffered war rape. I already cleaned that, but let's say I didn't. And let's say I would say, Elizabeth, my, what you call it, the solar plexus chakra is churning. And my grandmother was raped during the war. Which I'm telling you the true story. It did happen to my grandmother, and that's how I felt before I cleared.
Yes. So we would. So as I said, this process is done in the present moment. Yeah. And so the next question will be, where do you feel it? You're telling me you feel it in the solar plexus. We get a 0 to 10 of intensity on a scale of 0 to 10. How intense is the feeling? And then we would start doing we'd ask the person to be present in the moment,
right,
with their feeling, relax the breath, feel the feelings. And then there's a whole process. You're asking me to do something theoretical when actually we should actually.
Okay, all right. So I probably shouldn't. So this means that when a person comes to you, you do the clearance in the present moment, and you basing the treatment on somatic experiences. Where does it feel in your body? And that you clear.
It's a little more complicated than that.
Okay.
But that's part of the process. Really, honestly, describing the process is kind of like trying to explain what the experience of chocolate is.
Yes. All right. So then the best thing to do, because are you still offering trial sessions?
Well, I offer sessions.
You offer sessions.
Yeah, I offer sessions. Now,
right. Okay.
What I'm saying is, we have them experience it. Where are they feeling that charge in the body? Where is it located? That gives us a clue, because the body is intelligent.
Right.
And these things are unresolved bits of trauma, which sometimes are not little bits, but big bits. Are stored in the body. And you mentioned solar plexus. That's one place. So that provides us with an entry point.
Okay.
Now, I want to make really clear here who's doing the healing. I don't consider myself a healer.
Mm-hmm.
The healing is happening between source energy and the client.
Right.
So and I'm happy, and later, because I
Mhm.
have an actual ancestral clearing for the Magdalene wounds, so we'll do one for the group, and it'll work on the replay. It works on live replay. It's just as powerful. But so we'll do one for the group so they can experience what it feels like.
Okay.
But we if it was in the solar plexus, that gives us a clue about, oh, it's about what it's about, all the things well, you said solar plexus, I would think like lower down in the second chakra as well. That would be a space that would, although you said solar plexus, so we would, if that was where it was, we would address that. That's women standing in their power, anybody in the lineage standing in
Yeah.
their power, not being able to, or stopping others from standing in their power. So
Right.
and so and we would start there. But here's the other thing that's, so this is the kind of the magical part of this. It's unmeasurable. I sit as an ancestral clearing practitioner in a very blank space. You would call it shunya.
Shunya, yes. Maybe others don't understand Shunya. It's like a zero field consciousness in neutrality in the present moment, in non-linear time, when healing happens. I
That's
think
exactly right.
that's pretty much Shunya, but I'm afraid maybe others would not understand Shunya. It's SHUN, either Y or I saw it written both ways, and A, Shunya.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's this, we really just go into stillness, and I'm really just holding space, and I go blank. But there's a connection between the clients ask for help, and source energy.
Yeah.
And so I'm there as really as a focuser, and I'm the one that asks the questions, but the healing happens through the divine, the
Creator or
divine.
source.
Yes. So just to be clear about that. And the other thing is, we get a location on where you feel it as a somatic experience, and that gives us an entry point. But in that still space, a lot of information comes in about the lineage.
Yeah.
And we also have the client, there's a couple of different, there's like 5 different techniques within John Newton's ancestral clearing. And one of them I've described, we'll work on one of them now with the group. We'll use one of them when we do the group clearing for the Magdalene wounds later.
Okay.
But I'm going to describe another one for you now.
Okay.
We'll have the person feel the sensation, and we'll have them relax the breath and literally wait for a memory to come to them.
Yes.
And an image or a memory. And it's interesting because there's the somatic sensation. And when the client gets still and just is in a receptive mood space, the body will actually release a memory. It's the coolest thing. And so then we find out what's stressful about that, and kind of what's happening there. It's a stressful memory, unless, well, anyway, I won't get into the ifs, ands, or buts. And then we find out what they're saying to themselves about that stressful moment. Those are the golden key. That's the golden key. And have them say that, whatever they're saying to themselves, kind of like, I'm not enough, I'm going to die, what's wrong with me, any things like that. We have them take a nice 3 slow breaths. And as they take those 3 slow breaths, we have them repeat that silently to themselves. And as the client is doing that, they're presencing themselves, allowing the body to process this old thing that happened. The practitioner in me is working silent ancestral clearing prayers around that issue. So, and and so then when we're done with that, we ask, what's the sensation now, bigger, smaller, different? And it's usually smaller, or maybe it's bigger. It doesn't matter. It just depends. We just roll with whatever's happening with the body and continue the process until it just goes. It's interesting. You know how to work with somatic experiencing and move energy.
Yes.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. And I think as I'm listening that you explained clear enough this part for others, how it works. It's plain explanation. My dragon is telling me things. He's very curious. He's saying to me, I'm a cycle breaker of my dragon family. That's what he's telling me. And maybe he is, Gwyn. And my question is, it actually came up a lot in the Wisdom of Trauma film talks, the 7-day talks, that people were asking, posting on a Facebook website, I feel I'm a cycle breaker, but I don't have a toolbox. I don't know what to do. How can I heal ancestral trauma myself, but like for the whole lineage? Not just one person or not just one event. So what would be your take so Gwyn can start clearing the dragon family? You know, he's very concerned about his mother and dragon father. So he wants to know.
I love the question. And this is why I do the work that I do. I consider myself, you're talking about something that's also known as a transitional character. And I consider myself a transitional character, and you one as well, right? Somebody that breaks the cycle, right?
Yes.
So let's understand a little bit more about the nature of ancestral clearing and what's happening while we do it. I've said present moment. So we're working in the present moment. And when we work in the present moment, we're working in the quantum field. So we have access to the past, present, future all at once. So when you're clearing,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, because some people may not understand this part. It's maybe too technical. So like the way I explain it to others is that the practitioner is basically in non-linear time. It's called quantum entanglement. It's like you go there and you're present in future, past, present does not exist. You're there. Maybe that's more understandable.
Well,
you think?
the client is too. As if you're in the present moment, you have access to all those spaces.
Right.
This is where healing happens. You can't heal in the past or the future. You can only heal in the present moment. And interestingly, quantum physics is explaining to us that the present moment gives us access to the past, present, and future all at once. Therefore, when we clear ourselves of the unresolved stuff from the past, we clear the whole lineage front and back. There's no limit on 7 generations. Now, that 7 generation thing is they talk about that in Kundalini Yoga. And I actually asked the teachers about, well, what's the limitation? Because why would you limit the divine? Or, you know, why would you limit the quantum field? And the answer was very interesting. They said, because that's what science can measure. So that was an honest answer and a helpful one. And I went and did some research, and they now can measure 14 generations. So they can measure 7, they can measure 14 generations now. You can go and look that up, the nematode studies of ancestral kind of stuff. You can measure it in nematodes, which is kind of interesting. So I know that sounds a little weird, but I'm just saying that's what science can currently measure. However, we don't view it that way in the ancestral clearing world, because we're actually in the quantum field. So there's no limitation with source. We're clearing the whole thing. So
now Gwyn is interrupting, very impolite dragon. Gwyn saying, Now, if I go to Elizabeth, I can clear to my divine dragon mother and divine dragon father.
Yes. Yes. There's no limit.
Yeah, he seems to be happy about that.
Yeah.
All right.
It's exciting.
Okay.
It's exciting. And I've had some very interesting experiences. By the way, you and I share this. The audience doesn't know this, but it's an interesting prayer. So Perk around, I worked with So Perk quite a bit. It's the Sikh prayer that women pray. They chant it 11 times at one time each day for 40 days. And the lore is that it raises the man to sainthood, but it certainly clears negativity around men. So it's a very powerful prayer. And so Perk, actually, the experience that I had was I actually had a vision while I was working with So Perk of when men stopped seeing women as sacred. I saw that moment.
Yeah, it's for others. The spelling is Sopurkh. Sopurk. I plan to restart this prayer. It's totally private group in July, but yes, I worked with Sopurk. It's amazing. So yeah, it is amazing. Yeah. Sometimes it's painful, as you say, because when I practice Sopurk for one of my particular axes, who's like we say, it's a karmic soulmate. It's a person who actually was a gateway for me to higher consciousness. But boy, he resisted that Sopurk. I restarted for him 4 times, but it was all versus the persistence. Not for him. I don't know what he's doing. We are not in contact, but for me, it was really elevating for me to be able to put through the sound current to someone who's blindly, vehemently resisting it.
Also, so, yeah. I found it absolutely extraordinary how much I was holding unconsciously, like old stuff around men in my life. This guy did this and that guy did, and I never cleared it. And so, and all this stuff came out of my unconscious. It just rose up, and so I'm doing So Perk, and I'm running the ancestral clearing prayers all at the same time. And don't ask me how I did that; it just happened, and it was remarkable. And yes, it was uncomfortable, but we breathe through that. We breathe through that and allow, because as you say, the birthing process is uncomfortable.
It is, but the only way out is the way through, really. Right. With Sopurk. And some of Sopurk experiences, like when I chanted for Guru Dev, who was my teacher, Satnam Rasayan, then I had all these blissful experiences. Like it really depends who you are chanting for. And Guru Dev was considered like, how you say, enlightened, and so when I chanted, I still wanted to elevate him or just thank you for the teaching, something. It's when he died. April, he died. And
I remember.
Until May, I chanted for him. And that was, I've never taken like drugs like LSD, but what I read about mushrooms and LSD, that's what happened to me. I was all in bliss, tripping all over the heavens. So it's not always painful. Now, you mentioned, I don't know how much time we have or what time it is. Let me just check. Yeah, it's only half an hour we're talking, so that's okay. So you mentioned the Mary Magdalene wounds. Those are wounds that you and I might be familiar with, but not everybody knows. Actually, I would say a lot of women have no idea what these wounds are. So I just brief. The Mary Magdalene wounds has nothing to do with Mary Magdalene, although we named after Mary Magdalene. Those are basically wounds of patriarchy on women, very simply said. And this is 3 types of wounds. I just summarize them as bitch, which is fierce feminine. Fierce feminine was oppressed for I don't know how many centuries, or 10,000 years at least. So fierce feminine oppressed, that's the beach wound, that's called first Mary Magdalene wound. The second is the witch. My I'm Hungarian, so W's are not WITCH, witch wounds. Well, that everybody can relate to, because witches were burned all over Europe, in Salem, Massachusetts. It's a wounds of patriarchy of women who were healers, wise women, helping others by herbal magic and magic. So they were burnt. And we feel that it's in our womb, that's wound. And the third wound is the whore wound, which I call, it's shaming women's sexuality, meaning shaming our organs, the yoni, shaming sex in general, and calling a sensual woman a whore. Yeah. It's much more complicated than I just simplified. So those are the Mary Magdalene wounds, which I should rather call wounds of patriarchy, really. Mary Magdalene brought out this because she lived in a very hostile environment in Israel. And the reason she left for France is because Israel simply did not want to recognize her as a female Christ. They didn't want a female at all as a religious leader. So maybe that's how the wounds got the name. Now it's, I'm clearing them a lot. When I had my business, I used to clear a lot of Mary Magdalene wounds. I don't know what you do or how you do it. My method is different. I use theta healing for that. Not today's topic. I saw a couple of clearing prayers that you put in a group like last year, which is to clear these wounds. I very much like prayers. I love reading prayers. Personally, I don't pray a lot. For me personally, it doesn't work that well. But then if you could explain that a little further, how exactly those prayers work on the Mary Magdalene wounds.
Oh, I can.
Okay.
So there are 4 elements to this prayer. To any of the ancestral clearing prayers, is 4 elements. One is kind of assumed, but we still mention it, is our connection to source. We're asking source for help, the divine heaven, whatever you want to call the creator of all creation.
Right.
So number 1, connection to source, which we're always connected, but we acknowledge. And the second is the issue, forgiveness around the issue, whatever the issue is. So 80% of the ancestral clearing process is around forgiveness, which means releasing the charge around.
Right.
So that people understand what that is. Serving, foregoing, offering up to source. I'm offering up this thing to source, so people understand what forgiveness is, because people get confused. So number 2, forgiveness. 3 and 4 are gratitude and humility. So we say please and thank you.
Yes.
Those are the 4 pillars of the ancestral clearing prayers. And then I wove the Magdalene wounds into this, and this was really interesting. I told you that I had this vision while I was doing so and of when that moment when men stopped seeing women as sacred, and I was blown away. And I'm a scientist. Things like this don't happen to me. It's just, so I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I remember thanking the divine feminine for showing me that, or the divine for showing me that.
Mhm.
I went to sleep and I woke up the next morning and this prayer dropped in. So I would like to share it with you if that's okay.
Yes,
And then
please.
we can do like a group, then the group can get a sense of what the clearing feels like to them.
Yes, yes, because we have, I think, almost 500 ladies and gentlemen together, and I'm pretty sure that most of them wouldn't be familiar
Mhm.
with that. So that would be useful.
So
Yes.
we'll do this. I'll go through this and I'll say it for us so that it's for everyone.
Mhm.
Divine Mother, all that you are, thank you for your bountiful blessings on us. We ask humbly and gratefully for us and all of our ancestors through all time, timelines, space, dimensions, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations, for all shame around the female body, for every time we hid because we were told to cover ourselves, and for all we made it mean about our identity and our worth. For any time we projected shame onto anyone else, please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For all sexual desires twisted out of divinity, for sexual disorders, rape, incest, or any other sexual abuse, sexually transmitted diseases, sex or any other addiction, including codependency, money, and food addictions. And for any time our personal power was reduced or blocked in any way, or we blocked anyone else's personal power. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For any time we were accused of being possessed by demons, for any forced exorcisms, persecutions of any kind, for any violence, including abuse, hate crimes, torture, war, genocide, or slavery, and for any associated survivor's guilt, and for any time we took part in any of these things. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves for all that happened, no matter what it was. Please and thank you. For all issues around intimacy, for social anxiety, anytime we were shunned or otherwise shut out or shut down, and for any time these actions made others feel, our actions made others feel these things. Please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For any time we experience the laws of nature being digressed, for any animal torture or abuse of any kind, and anytime we were responsible for such acts, please help us all to forgive one another and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For any time we were stoned, stigmatized, or scorned in any other way. For any time we hid ourselves away, making ourselves invisible in isolation, shutting out our power just to keep ourselves safe. Please help us all to forgive all those involved and forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. For any time we felt we weren't part of the family or the tribe, for any lies we were told or lies we told to others, for blindness, hypocrisy, racism, sexism, or any other spiritual, mental, or physical illness that ensued, please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves. For the highest good, please and thank you. Divine Mother, please help us heal these wounds. Help us to stand tall in our power. Help us to reclaim the bliss and ecstasy of life into our own and know for once and for all our own true worth. Please and thank you. Help us live in the compassionate awareness, the divine nature of all beings. Fill us with your love and let us know your love the way you love us. Please and thank you. Please help us open and live from our intuition, from your knowledge that we can never be separate from one another or from you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Now, everybody take a breath in and let it out.
Well, thank you. And as you could see, the baby dragon, Gwen, he has the habit of like interrupting others. He's still a baby. And he was telling me, tell Elizabeth it's a very touching prayer, and I'm a baby male dragon. Can I recite it for my dragon tribe?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, he seems to be very happy.
Absolutely, because men carry these wounds through their mothers.
Yes.
So it's this is a prayer for everyone. And the only reason why I call it ancestral clearing for the Magdalene wounds is because Mary Magdalene is one of many feminine avatars that carry these wounds. It just happened to be the one that came in for me. And someone had already labeled these 3 wounds women and their bodies, women and their standing in their power, and women and their intuition. They'd already kind of labeled these as the Magdalene wounds. And I was like, yeah, this is this.
And also women as sexual healers, because originally a
Yes.
sacred prostitute was a sexual healer.
Mhm. Well, women in
So
their
it's
bodies,
not
all
just
the issues around women in their bodies, all those issues.
Yes, that's the largest category, the women's bodies. But also rejecting or spiritual guidance, like with sacred prostitutes, there is a lot going on, not just the body. It's also a female is on a higher spiritual plane always ever than a male. Kabbalah starts with that man, women are on a higher spiritual plane. So women are designed to be spiritual guides for men through sex, really. And when we talk about this last Mary Magdalene wound, which is the whore wound, then it's also denying women as spiritual guides. Because if you look at yoga and look at meditation and spiritual life, we have a couple of female saints, very, very few in numbers, but yoga, spiritual life were always dominated by men. So that also goes into there, actually, very much so. Yeah, but that's not today's talk. It's very, very complex. It's large. So I personally don't have any other questions. I ask Vin. Yeah, he's saying thank you. He understood everything. And he said he's going to share that with his dragon tribe.
Wonderful.
And they have the next dragon powwow. That's what Welsh dragons have from time to time. And he was asking you, what else could you add for dragons and humans? So.
Well, I'll say this. There is no separation between dragons and humans. We're all one.
That's right. Okay, it's very happy. So thank you so much. What I'll do is, because you recorded this interview, while we say goodbye to everyone who listened. So what I'll do is I'm going to, you recorded it. I'm going to convert it in this software, and I'll be posting the link on the group site.
And if anybody would like to have a session, an ancestral clearing session, or work with me for any other reason, you can find me at www.elizabeth-kipp.com, or you can email me at elizabeth, put the dash in there, Kipp, KIPP.com.
All right, so I post this interview first, and hopefully people will start watching it. That's the first step. And then if they have questions, you can look through it. You're also a group member. And then you can, I have this weekly marketplace. It's one post, and then people can post threads that what they do and what they sell, basically. So you can post your website there.
Nice, thank
and
you.
Also these prayers will come, or they are there somewhere in the group content, really just for me, it's difficult to oversee. So yeah, thanks again. And then my dragon says bye too.
Bye, Gwen.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you.
Great to see you. Much love.
Yes, nice
blessings.
to see you. Yes.
Bye now. Take care.
Bye.